Good evening, guys. We'll just let it catch up for a few seconds. There we go. Good evening, guys. We are live. Welcome to Live and Undrugged Series 2, Episode 11. First of all, I want to thank my sponsor, Mr. James Jeffries, and the Gosport anti-bullying campaign. I will put the link in the comments later. Tonight, I am speaking with Andrea Mason, and she is a Global Voice personal accountability coach. So yeah, it's great to have you on, Andrea. We were supposed to have you on a little while ago, but
a little bit earlier.
Yeah, yes. There's been some confusion with times and
time zones.
But,
yes.
Yeah, it's great to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. So I'd like to take you back to the start of your journey, really, and find out a bit about you and how you became what you became.
Absolutely. Well, you had mentioned to your sponsor on bullying, and well, that suits right into where it all started. So I was born in a war-torn drug zone era at its prime, joined the cartel in Colombia, South America. It was crazy. It was chaotic. And my parents had to make the ultimate sacrifice to put me up for adoption. And I was brought to the promised land of America at 11 pounds, weighing in at 11 months. That's a pound per month. And when I came to my family, I was welcomed with open arms and unconditional love. At the age of 7, my parents had said, "You are our treasure. You are adopted." But unbeknownst to me, for the years ahead, Jack, it was a tragedy. I had no medical records, no photographs, no knowledge of my parents. And so when you come to America from a different ethnicity and culture, background, and race, you're bullied. You're not accepted, at least where I was. I had the perspective that I was raised in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. Everybody knew everybody's name and everybody was the same, acted the same, looked the same, and just had the same mindset. There's a few sprinkles here of differences, but not much. But you know as well as I do, kids can be cruel. I got bullied. I got picked on because I didn't look like my parents. I didn't fit in. I spoke differently. I acted differently. I had to work 10 times harder just to get by in school. Why? Because I learned differently. But my parents were of great stature. They were successful bankers and were able to retire at the age of 55. Well, when you come from a different ethnicity, a different background, things are a little bit different. I was forced into, actually by myself, a safe haven during the school-aged years to eat my lunch in the bathroom stalls, just to get avoided from shoved into lockers, thrown into trash cans, and bullied every single day because I was different. Now, who would have thought? Who would have thought coming to America, the land of free, the land of a second chance at life? And what happened was, it was difficult for me. And as I grew up, I understood, oh my goodness, I am different from individuals. And I kind of went through the rebellious years. Okay, if you're going to push me around, I have to retaliate. But I had to find a way to escape. I had to find avenues that fit my skill set. What were those avenues? They were avenues of the athletic realm of soccer and the artistry of playing the piano. All began at the age of 4. These were my saving grace. I excelled at it because I knew if I couldn't make it in the classroom, I was going to make it either in the concert hall or on the field. But that took a toll during my relationships. My parents didn't want me. I didn't understand what was going on. How How could you take a young child and just send them to another country, another continent? So what did I do? I self-sabotaged. I put barriers up and just became numb. I was abused sexually, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually during my later years because I didn't care. If people didn't care about me, why should I care about myself? So when I engaged in relationships or friendships or the dating scene, I stayed for a little while, but then I moved on. Because every time I got close to someone, I was burned. I was betrayed. I was hurt. I was lied to, and I was left and abandoned. Here you go again, a young child at the age of 11, abandoned by her family, brought to a new land of the free, only a few decades later to get abandoned again by people around her. So I decided to make a choice. I was not going to live this road. I was going to change my stars and go to learn what is going on with this world. I enrolled over 2+ decades in social work and psychology. Why? Social work to understand the different ethnicities, traditions, beliefs, morals, and lifestyles and socio and economic statuses of everyone. And then I had the psychology component. Getting to the root cause and understanding why we did what we did and why we don't do what we do. I was taught during those industries, you go into an institution, a shelter, on the streets, and you went in with the rap sheet. This is what they did. This is what they were diagnosed with. This is how they act. This was their final history. This was their profile. Well, I didn't buy it. I left that file at the office and read it afterwards. Because I went in there seeing an individual for who they were. This was someone's mother, daughter, uncle, father. And they were either at the wrong place at the wrong time, or that's the behavior all they've known because they were the victim to it. They had limited and lack thereof knowledge of what was done to them, for them, or to them. Maybe at that time they were not in their right frame of mind. Maybe they were self-medicating, whether it be through substances, food, other individuals, or just staying in isolation. I got to learn about those individuals. And it was when I went back to the office, I'll never forget this. I went to see an individual. I left the file there. An amazing individual. And their story unraveled. I came back to the office and I said, this individual needs help. And I'll never forget their face. How could you help such monster? I was gasped. Monster? You only know the diagnoses that happen on the incidents of their admission or their situation. You didn't know about the abuse, the neglect, the voices, the chaos in their mind at that time. That individual is a human being. And based on their situations pre-existing or prior, it caused them to do the wrong thing. But Andrea, that person took their parents' lives and they took advantage of this individual and so forth. Sure, those acts are unfortunate, devastating, and horrific. But what if the first person that they went to treated them like I did, as an individual, as opposed to someone of malicious behavior? So after a few years, I've grinded hard to try to make sure I can alter the perspective of the doctors, the people of law enforcement, the people on the streets. I tried. But you can only feed a horse to water. Can't force him to drink, right? So then I decided to exit my time there. I paid my dues, dedicated some time. I went into the medical and holistic realm. There I understood we have the power to heal ourselves. We have powers beyond measure if we take 1 second to make a choice, then we can make the right choice. But a lot of us fall into the fact of blaming others, living in the past and not being present. And that's when I decided that I was going to do something. I was on the other side of the desk. I was the victim. I was the abused. And when my parents felt to have me speak to someone, tell me if this is familiar. Hello, Andrea, how are you doing? What's going on? I'd say my piece. Okay, so this is what you're telling me. They say their piece. And then it closes with, well, I'm sorry you're going through that. This is what it's called. This is the situation. And we'll resume next week. Don't forget to reschedule at the front desk your next session and complete the transaction. And at that moment, Jack, I decided I'm not going to do that to anyone else. I am not going to be another statistic. I'm not going to be the part of the problem as opposed to being part of the solution. And when I did that, that's when press play came to fruition. Plan life according to you. You only have one life. And as Greg Plitt says, if you live it right, that's all you need. But getting to today, what brought me here, the world shut down when I made that decision. But the benefit of social media, thumbing through the feed, I heard this. Are you going through it or are you growing through it? And that was my legendary Mr. Les Brown as my mentor. And at that time, my current employee at the Wellness Center closed their doors. Now what am I going to do? I finally found an angle where I can utilize all my gifts, skills, talents, experiences, and stories, and the world shuts down. Well, I enrolled in Mr. Brown's Academy to utilize my voice. I was no longer going to be behind the screen helping others unless they knew I went through what they've been through. And in doing so, I was able to speak as of last year, sharing my voice on every continent of this world, being authentic, transparent, and a woman of integrity. Because you can read about all these conditions. You can read about depression. You could read about isolation. You could read about stereotypes and labels. But until you experience it, it's just reading material. I look back at my life. I've made mistakes. I've hurt people. People have hurt me. But every single one of us is a name somewhere, somehow on a therapeutic couch. Whether we've hurt them or they've hurt us. And until we face our past, truth be told, our past is going to continue to chase us. And it's going to be an innocent bystander that may have the name, the face, the attribute of someone who's hurt us, and we take it out on them. Sure, forgiveness, forgive and forget. Yeah, it's easy. No, we don't forget, because once we forget, it's a repetitive behavior and action that happens over and over again. Believe you me, when I had relationships treated like gold, yeah, no, it's all right. I'm good. I'm good. I really care about you. No, it's okay. I kept my distance. But as soon as somebody treated me poorly, I welcomed it with open arms. Why? Because of the false beliefs, the insecurities, the stigmatisms, the labels, the behavior and maltreatment people have programmed in my life for so long. It's easier to believe that than to believe anybody could care for you. I could have given up. My body could have shut down when I came here to America. My parents could have not given me that extra second chance at life. I could have given up in school and said, forget this, and live a vigilante lifestyle. But who loses in the end? The joke's on me, because I'm the fool to follow the false beliefs other people put upon me. And that's when we must take a choice. Make a choice. Every single second in life, we have the capability to change our mind. If you don't believe me, ladies, I'm going to call us out. When somebody asks you a question, hey, what do you want? Well, I want this. No, actually, you know what? Maybe I want this. Now, we are quick and capable to change our minds. So I ask you, have you changed your mind? Or are you just going to continue to live the life that people have painted for you? Because you don't blame anyone else but yourself for where you are today, how you feel, how you think, or you have given complete power to someone to have power over you. We make mistakes. We're human. It happens. But the quickest way to change your channel, take somebody who's hurt you really bad. Have that image. And when you want to do something that's healthy, happy, makes you thrive, have that person say, you're not going to do it. I know you're not going to do it. Here you go again, false promises, not a person of your word. Just keep talking, your dream. That will be the fuel to allow you to fail forward. That will be the energy, because let's be honest, everyone, we're in a two-dimensional world right now, and we bank on the likes and dislikes. But why are we so focused on the dislikes? Why is it so comfortable for someone to criticize you rather than someone praise you? Be there for yourself and for those who support you. Be there for the ones who are there for you and show up time and time again. Don't quit because somebody says, I don't like you. I don't believe you. You can't do that. If anything, if you are difficult on yourself, prove them wrong. Not by your words, not by vengeance, but by your actions. Because you're worth it. Anybody who says something different, they have to really do a deep dive into forgiveness. Why don't you deserve another day on this life, on this planet? Why do you have to settle while other people thrive? Why do you have to be the go-to person all the time? But when you ask for help, there's crickets. Live your life for yourself. Start today. Start now. Building a legacy that's going to outlive you. Cliche question. What do you want to be remembered for? Someone's listening. Someone's watching. Someone needs your light right now. Don't be selfish. And hold it. Because you have gifts, skills, and talents. If you fear it, then go for it. If you believe it, be strong enough to achieve and receive it. Once you doubt yourself, then you've justified everybody else's false beliefs about you. The only competition you have to do and face is your reflection in the mirror of yesterday. That's all you have to figure out. And as Jim Carrey says, look at your life. Look at your skills, gifts, and talents. What do you have that they need? What have you gone through that you don't want anybody else to go through? Because of the pain, the agony, and the struggle. Yeah, people don't believe in you. Yeah, people left you. But there's a reason and a season for everyone. Find out what you want and stop living other people's dreams. You're here. You're here for a reason. We don't have a destination timestamp. We don't. It's how we live our life in fulfillment. To fail forward. Yes, it hurt when I got bullied. Yes, it sucked when I got abused. But those are the events that allow me to sit here in front of you to say it's possible. I have a trustworthy friend that I've connected with some time ago. And you don't know how bad you got it until you start talking with people and hearing their stories. And this individual was the son of a warrior. Overcame the most difficult adversity of life. And every day, he's reminded of what his father says. Wake up every single day to be the answer to someone's prayer. Powerful. And you know me, stubborn, hard-headed. Been there, done that, heard that, whatever. It's not going to work. And then we discussed about the most amazing word in the English language. Impossible. What's amazing about the word impossible? Before the word possible states I'm possible. Here I am thinking I'm going through things. Yet here's a gentleman who has faced death and conquered it. For those of you interested, his name is Dr. Nelson Belteshaw, thepositivetrip.com. You're here for a reason. Your story, yes, we all have the book of life. Trials, tribulations, tragedy, laughter, fun, loss, love. Some have longer chapters than others. but we're all human. And once we realize that connectivity and take self-assessment, self-awareness, and assurance, like Gary Vee, that's when we become our best selves. We can say, hey, these are my skeletons. What's yours? Here's this. Tell war stories. Oh, yeah, well, I did this. Well, touche, I did this. But as you play that game, you learn that we're all somehow, somewhere the same. But it's our differences that make us authentic. It's our differences that make us stand out rather than fit in. If you have a vice, accept it. It happened. It's in the past. But you are the master of your own destiny. Do you want to harp on that vice and repeat it over and over again and live in wallow in misery? Misery loves company. Excuses sound best to those who create them. But it's the solutions that lead to success. Think about it. If we were all made the same, all had the same looks, lifestyles, background stories, it'd be pretty boring. To be quite honest. But one of the areas we have to learn in this life, on this planet, number one, vulnerability. Take ownership and accountability for what you've done and what you didn't do. Number two, awareness. Look at the little red flags that come up. What is triggering you to lead to your behavior? I had a conversation this morning with someone, and they were talking about how a certain situation had set them off. I said, I understand, I respect, I see where you're coming from. Let me change the lens of your vision. Sure, this situation happened, and you're upset because of the situation, the dynamics, the demographics, the timeline, and the scenarios. But look at your life. Yeah, you weren't handed life with a silver platter. You had to work for everything you've earned. You had to prove to the stats and society that you could make it. Now you tell me which scenario looks better. We have to be mindful of what lens we're looking through. Is it the ones of the naysayers, the non-believers, society? Let's be real. Or is it with our heart? I challenge you every single day. Follow your heart. And not the herd, nor the herd. And herd can be either way, what you hear or the masses. Because once you stand out from the crowd, that's when you stand up. We all have a story. When we are younger, our story is written for us and told to us. But at what point do you take the pen in your own hand and start writing your story? Forgiveness is not easy. It's not an overnight ordeal. But once you achieve forgiveness, you achieve personal freedom. For as Mr. Brown says, an old African proverb, as long as the enemy within does me no harm, nor will the enemy without, one of those, yeah, outside. I messed that up, but it's true, because how you view yourself is how others are going to view you. Some may reboot it, some may not fall in alignment, but we're not here to please everyone. We're not made for everyone. But when you find the capability to put yourself in the seat of everyone you speak to in the audience worldwide on the other side of the screen, that's when you make powerful impact and influence. And that is when you are heard.
Yeah. Wow. I needed to hear that. And I know quite a few people out there, probably some that are watching, needed to hear that. Unforgiveness has been a massive part of my life for so long. Well, it was, still is to a point. You know, there's a Bible verse that's followed me through life, because I always had a vengeful heart. If somebody wronged me, I would go and wrong them. If somebody hurt me, I would go and hurt them. You know, my personal mantra used to be, if you beat me with your fists, you better come back with a bat. You beat me with a bat, you better come back with a knife. You beat me with a knife, you better come back with a gun, because I'm going to keep coming back until one of us is dead. And this Bible verse is Romans 12:20. And I'm a man of faith now, but, you know, this Bible verse followed me all the way around through my life, sort of supernaturally. It kept popping up. You know, and it says that if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If your enemy is thirsty, give him the best wine. For it is down to the Lord to rain hot coals upon his head. And that didn't click for a long time. For me, that didn't click. I had so much unforgiveness in my life. Unforgiveness to my abusers, unforgiveness to my bullies, unforgiveness to some bloke that walked into me on the street 20 years ago and didn't say sorry. Unforgiveness to the bus driver who was grumpy. All these things would just affect me and affect me and affect me. You see, and I didn't understand this. I didn't understand about unforgiveness. I couldn't forgive myself for some of the things that I did wrong. I couldn't forgive myself for the people that I'd harmed. I couldn't forgive myself for the man that I put into intensive care for 2 weeks. I couldn't forgive myself for the damage that I did to my parents. I could not forgive myself for the damage that I did to my biological mother and my biological family. I couldn't forgive myself for all these things. And then I started to. And then my niece died. I was a good little church boy, and, you know, she died at the hands of violence to her father. And I hated him. I planned these things in my head, not that I would ever do it, but I, you know, if I went back home, you know, if I went on that journey, I could go back home and I could commit a crime and then I get put in the same prison as him and I could go and kill him. All these things went round in my head. He was in prison for, he got life with a minimum of 10 years, and I think less than a year into his sentence, he was murdered by his cellmate. And then we were left with questions that would forever go unanswered. I hated him. As soon as I heard good, he deserved it. He deserved to die. And then my friend, one of the elders from my church, he took me home for the funeral because I couldn't do it on my own. And I kept myself composed. And then after the funeral, I went outside to light a cigarette. And his mum walked up to me and she put her arms around me. And I broke. I didn't know what to do. I froze. We went back to the car. Believe my auntie said to me, "Are you all right?" And I went, I can't do this. And we went back to the car and I broke down. And I knew then I had to forgive him. I knew then that for my own safety, for my own mentality, for my own soul, I needed to forgive him for what he did. Not only that, I needed to forgive his mum. And it took a while. And then I started forgiving myself, because guilt and shame is poisonous. Guilt and shame is corrosive to the soul. Unforgiveness goes two ways. Forgive them, forgive yourself. So I forgave them. I forgave myself. I had to, because I think some people think it's a sign of weakness to forgive someone for doing something wrong to you. It's a sign of strength. It is not weak to want to be a better person in your own mind. It is not weak to need to forgive people of wrongs so you can sleep at night. Forgiveness doesn't mean being a walkover. Forgiveness doesn't mean forget. And I think, whether it's, like I said, I'm a man of faith, and whether it's from a faith point of view or a personal growth point of view, it's something that we need to do because forgiveness, like I said, doesn't mean forget. It doesn't mean like the person. I believe in that if we forgive someone, and biblically we're commanded to love them. Well, love somebody doesn't mean let them walk all over you. Sometimes love someone means love them enough to not wish them dead. Love them enough to not keep them in your head. Love them enough to not let them rule your life. And that's hard. That is so hard. And if your story's done anything tonight, it's confirmed that how resilient we are. There's three stages. Been stuck, a victim of your own circumstance, and some people never get past that. Becoming a survivor of that circumstance, most people never get past that. Most people get stuck in that survival mode and go through the rest of their life like that. What people don't realize is the third, thriver. We're not meant to just survive, we're meant to thrive. And by you coming on here, sharing your story, talking to someone else who is pretty much doing the same thing that you are on a regular basis, because we have this journey that we're on. We have this gift that we need to share. I've been through some real trauma in my life, and so have you. And so I have a lot of other people that have been on this broadcast, And for anybody to get up and use their voice is amazing to me. I knew how to use my fists. I always struggle with using this. You know, when you get used to one way, then you become quite stubborn in that way. I was never, you know, I was always an ideas man, and I couldn't get it down on paper. Then I learned to read and write, and I learned to get it down on paper. But then I struggled to get it out of here. I could get it out of these, writing it down, but I couldn't get it out of there. And by doing this, I started this as an exercise to build my confidence. And it's become so much more. I never thought, you know, that people will bring me these prophecies saying you're going to be a voice for other people. I never thought that. Who's going to listen to me? Who's going to listen to this, you know, Northern monkey rabbiting on week after week after week about, oh, what I've been through and what these people have been through? Well, it's amazing how many people will, because it's amazing how many people have shared your journey. You know, we're on parallel roads, and I will never, ever stop championing people like you, and I will never, ever stop championing ideas like forgiveness. I interviewed a guy the other day, a psychologist, trained psychologist, not a man of faith, but he spoke about the scandal of grace. You know, as a Christian, I know about, you know, I've heard about grace, this thing called grace, that we're undeserved of these things that we get, of this love that we get, but we get it. So practice grace. And that was a light on for me. That was a light on for me. And that's another reason why I wanted to get you on. You know, and work around the, you know, the misunderstandings that we've had about the time difference.
The time, right.
You know, I really wanted to get you on because I've got a lot of people on my page that really struggle with things like this. And I always talk about grace and mercy and unforgiveness, and, you know, unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And people listen to it, and you know, I'm not always able to get it out. My brain works 1,000 miles an hour, and sometimes I'm like, blah, and I just start and I can't stop.
Right.
And to hear you speak about it gracefully, that made me stop and think and listen. What I want to ask you is, you decided to, you know, you made that decision to practice forgiveness. How does somebody that doesn't know about that even begin to start?
It's not easy. It's different for everyone. But the best way to start is to look at the individual and the individualized incident and say the cause, the intent, the root cause of the individual or individuals, where it stemmed from. Is it a reflection of you or a reflection of them? Many times it's people who admire you, or for your bravery, for your whatever it may be. People tear you down when they see something that you can do that they haven't gotten the strength or courage to do. And it is important that we understand that everything that's done to us, not all the time is what we attract, but at times it is. You know, one of the biggest questions is, well, how do I forgive someone who lives in the same home or is in with my immediate family? I see them every single day. My challenge to you, have you addressed it to them in a civil and respectful manner? Because we're not mind readers. As much as we feel, oh, well, they understand where I'm coming from. They know who I am. There's such and such a correlation to me. They get it. Reality is they don't. They're either just on pilot mode, doing what's been done to them over and over again until someone has or has not yet pushed this, wait a minute, stop button. Do you realize what you're doing? And have them take ownership and accountability to say, wait a minute. Wait, that's how I have made you feel? That's what I'm doing? I did a segment, I did a speech the beginning of last year. And I shared my story about victimization and bullying. And one individual stood out and had addressed me and said, you know what? I never thought of it that way. I was the bully. I was the powerhouse. And it wasn't until now I realized how I could or would or had made somebody feel. Excuse me. And at that moment, I said to the individual, on behalf of those you've bullied, those you've hurt, those who've humiliated, on behalf of them and myself, I forgive you. And they said that was the most powerful thing they've ever experienced. Because nobody checked them at the door to say, hey, wait a minute. Do you understand what you're doing? This is how it's making me feel. This is how I'm feeling. And that's what we have to do. We have to address it. Be brave enough to address it so you can suppress and stop it to others. It's not going to be easy. You're going to lose people along the way. But you may, as Jack said, save the life of another.
Yeah. You talk a lot about self-sabotage. I think that's something that we do whether we suffer with mental illness or not. I think that's one of the negative human traits. And we can want to forgive, but then we feel undeserved. That's when the self-sabotage comes in and we try and push people away. Don't trust people because we've been burnt so many times, you know, and it's hard, you know, it's hard. I didn't think that this conversation would affect me as much. You know, I've grown a resilience, and I do listen, but you know, I think sometimes we have to let things in. We try and put on the armor, you know, but you know, the breastplate, the shield, you know, the righteousness, and we forget that actually it's a normal emotional growth thing to trust. We need trust in our lives, because if we have no trust, how on earth are we ever going to trust ourselves enough to be able to step out? You know, my good friend Grantley Watkins is coming on the show in a few weeks. Hopefully, he's the lead elder, one of the lead elders at our church, and He's a great man of faith and knowledge, but he describes it as facing giants.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the David and Goliath. And we forget that David was a teenager. You know, not only was Goliath the biggest thing in the land, but David was a teenager. A spotty teenager who herded sheep. And he was scared, but he stepped out and faced his giant. And not only did he take that giant down, he went back and took out his 3 brothers. You know? And he made mistakes in his life. He sent his best friend off to war so he could take his wife. He wasn't always the best king, but he was chosen because he would step out in faith. And stepping out in faith isn't always a religious thing. It's a natural thing.
By sight. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We don't always know if we're going to step out into the road and somebody's going to come speeding around. Every time we step out of the house, whether we know it or not, we are stepping out in faith. Every time we go to sleep, we are stepping out in faith that we're going to wake up the next morning. Every time we go do something, we're stepping out in faith. And it's as simple as that. But we don't always think like that. You know, my brain is a bit divergent. I don't always think like that. And it's not always the simplest way for me. You know? So when you sit there and you speak about this in such a simple way, my mind goes, what's the catch? And I know there's a lot of other people whose mind will go, what's the catch? And there isn't always a catch, because sometimes stepping out in faith is just stepping out in faith. Whether that's faith in God, how you choose to understand him, whether that's faith in the universe or the world or Mother Earth or Buddha or, or Allah, whatever you choose to call it. Sometimes we need to go down the simplest route, but that seems to us the furthest route and the hardest.
The one less traveled.
Exactly, because we see the devious in everything. We see the, this is too good to be true.
It reminds me of one of my favorite, although it's sad, Broadway plays, Les Miserables. To love another person is to see the face of God.
Yes.
We just look at each other, that we're all made by the same creator. What an amazing world we'd be living in today.
Yeah. And it is as simple as that at times.
We make it complex because we don't think it's possible. We make it complex because we're stuck in the past. We make it complex because it's just the way we feel it has to be. If you choose to be anything, choose to be kind.
I like that, yeah. I don't like the word impossible. Implausible.
Mm-hmm.
Implausible.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing is impossible. Because we are stronger than we think. We're more resilient than we think. Whether we're people of faith or not. Now, I myself believe in a God that is supernaturally natural and naturally supernatural.
Right.
You know, I believe that church isn't a place where you go to become part of a gallery for good people. It's a hospital for broken people. And it's where we learn to, where we go to learn not to be broken anymore, or to be less broken. But even if it's not church, it's about education. It's about listening. You know, that's why I do these. Not just to educate other people, because I learn far more than most people would ever learn.
Yeah.
Because I sit here and, you know, I watch these over and over and over and over again. Partly because I'm critical of myself and how I handle myself and how I, you know, but other times I watch because I need to hear, did they really say that? Is it really as simple as that? You know, some of the things that you know we've talked about tonight are counterintuitive, and you know, up until a few years ago, would up until now, would be seen by some professionals as scandalous. But if this has taught me anything, and that, you know, if this has taught anybody anything that's watching this, it should be that the scandal of grace and the scandal of forgiveness isn't about other people. It isn't about you forgiving them for what, you know. It's about strengthening you and strengthening your resilience and becoming a better person. It's much easier to love someone than hate someone. It's much easier to forgive someone than not to forgive someone. Because if you don't forgive someone, it's just going to sit on your heart. It's going to sit on your soul, and it's going to tear you apart. But by, you know, simply forgiving, I say simply, it's not always that simple, is it? But forgiving, forgetting, you know, we don't move on from trauma. We move. We take it with us, but we learn. We learn to live with it. We learn to cope with it. We learn to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't know how good we feel until we truly feel good.
No. And you have to remember that trauma, that unforgiveness, that hurt that you're harboring, not what yours to harbor, is it? Don't belong to you, it belongs to them. What they've done, their actions, you say about accountability, their actions that affected you, but it's their actions. It matters to them. So by forgiving them, we are cutting ourselves off from their trauma. And that's a sensible thing. And I'm not always a sensible person, trust me. You know, it's a sensible thing. Tell me about accountability.
Accountability is knowing what you have to do, taking the opportunity to assess and reflect, prioritizing it, and putting it into action. Taking ownership of every action you create, make, and put into effect. See, the difference that I do from others is I don't dictate, I don't lecture, I listen, I learn, I love. That's what makes me authentic from every other coach out there. There's no excuses, just results. If I lead, then I'm telling you how to live your life. If I guide, I may put you into an uncomfortable position. So I walk right beside you every step of the way. No judgment, no filter. The analogy I like to use is holding the back of the bike for a child as they're learning to ride.
Yeah. I don't think we always know how to hold ourselves accountable for the things that we've done. I don't think we do hold ourselves accountable, or if we do, it's over accountable and we blame ourselves. That's not accountability, that's blame. You know, it's always the extreme with some people. With me, it can always be the extreme. You know, I try to hold myself accountable, but I blame myself, or I did. You know,
sometimes you need that other person to help you.
Yeah, and I believe fully in accountability. You know, I hold myself accountable. You know, I have to. You know, I do this. I help guide people to find their own voice. I help guide people to find their own education. Lots of people will take different things out of these different things. I'm a journalist. I write facts. As a Christian, I hold myself accountable. And I have people within the church that I have accountability partnerships with. Because we need to. You know, I might not drink alcohol or use drugs anymore. I might not, be a violent man anymore. I might not have certain thoughts and feelings anymore. Might not doesn't mean will not. You know, all it takes is one wrong day and me losing my temper. So I think we have to be. And we have to open ourselves to that. I think it's a sensible thing to do whether you're a Christian or not. Because accountability builds honesty. And as a dishonest man trying to live an honest life, we can sometimes forget that. Addict, criminal, whatever. And it's not always, we're not always perfect, are we?
No such thing as perfection.
No, there isn't. And we can think we're doing good, but then still people engage us and we don't always mean to, but we might gossip about someone, or we might, which is damaging. Gossip is damaging. And we might say this about them or that about them, or, and then you have to pull yourself back and think, hang on, am I doing what I'm accusing them of doing to me? And you get stuck in that
hamster wheel
that vicious circle. And then you end up bouncing off everything. And then you end up getting yourself in a tangle and making yourself dizzy. Yeah, I mean, what you've said tonight, and the conversation that we've had tonight, it isn't new, but it is to some, and it's so simple. We find it so difficult.
Complicated.
You look at it and you think this should be simple, but then your mind starts working over and over and over, and then you don't go from A to B, do you? You go from A to
A1, A2, A3,
yeah.
A4. Yeah,
up to Z, and then back down to B. It's how we do it. That's part of the human condition, and it's the negativity in our lives. We would all be better off without negativity, although it exists, and sometimes we have bad days and we get negative about these things that happen.
Right.
I try and be a bit more positive. Not always easy. I'm a parent. I've got kids all under 16. It's not always easy.
Work in progress. It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress, and we have to work on ourselves, but we have to work with other people. They call it self-help, but it's not really, is it? Because I'm a great believer in combined wisdom, and we're getting the wisdom from people like you and other people that I've had on. We're getting wisdom from these people that write books, these authors. We're getting, philosophers, theologians, motivational speakers, personal accountability,
Yeah.
So we get all
that. It takes a village to raise a child. As a parent, I can relate. It takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah. So that's not self-help, is it? All right. And initially, you're stepping out to help yourself, but then it's other people helping you. So you can't really call it. Probably my mind working overtime, but you can't really call it self-help, can you? It's
right. Self-awareness.
Self-awareness.
Having awareness about yourself through the eyes of others, different perspectives, different levels, different mindsets. That's how you evolve. That's how you grow.
I think we'll probably finish on this, but I used to be bothered about what people used to think about me. And it wouldn't matter if I'd, stolen their car a couple of days before, or smashed somebody's face in the year before, or I couldn't stand the thought of other people not liking me, because I always had this need for validation, which came from the rejection that I felt on my 8th birthday when I was sat on my mother's knee and told that I was adopted. I was loved, but I was adopted. And for me, that was when the light went out. But it came from that. And so I always searched for validation. I always searched for, wanted people to like me for something, or want me for something, or just want to be my friend for something. So I would work at whatever I could to keep these people around. And a lot of that would be toxic. A lot of that would be them wanting to use me for their own validation. But I really didn't care, because I needed to be validated. And I think as a writer and an actor and, a speaker, we have a bit of a need for validation. Not validation, but, we like to know that what we are doing is right. But I think somebody said it to me like this: it's about mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter.
That's funny because that's a segment in what I do. That's actually the title.
Yeah, exactly. And it's fundamental truth. We do mind. It does affect us. The negativity, especially on things like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and the trolls that you get. We spoke before we started a little bit about, you know, some of the things that I've had with trolls.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Why are we so worried about the naysayers? But then we could have 100 followers, 99 can support us, but that one that doesn't, we yearn for that approval. We yearn for that acceptance. And as a fellow adoptee, I always say this: it's like I'm looking for that 8th piece in the puzzle. It's always missing. It's that pizza wheel constantly turning, but when I have it, there's always a piece missing. And it's that underlying thread of our subconscious of being abandoned, whether it was a choice in my situation or something that had to be done. You know, the first 7 months of life is where the nature occurs. But it's the next 7 years where the nurturance really taps into effect.
Yeah, I agree. I do. I agree fully. When you have an existential crisis at 8, it's not the easiest thing to get over. And I use drugs on that, and I use them as a way to keep my head in a certain way.
Medication and the way helps soothing.
Yeah. And when we were being abused sexually, we've been validated. All right, validated as a object, but it's still there. That's, you know,
a convoluted area. Wow, I'm loved, but I'm not loved.
Yeah, I'm loved, but why does it hurt?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, I always want to be able to say when I do these that I'm honest, brutally sometimes. And sometimes honesty doesn't come out of my mouth, it comes out of other people's mouths, but I want them to learn the truth. When we're being honest, we have to be brutal sometimes. We have to talk about the things that are uncomfortable. And I know that there are people that switch off. And I know there are people that don't watch. And I know there are people that troll me because I talk about things that they say men should not talk about.
Right.
They say men should not talk about the abuse. Men should not talk about the emotions. Men should not do this. Men should not do that. You know, men shouldn't talk about mental illness because men shouldn't be mentally ill. Men should be men. It's that toxicity that sits in every one of these voices. And these are the lies. You know, the lies.
But when you put a human trait, a gentle genuinity, a sensitivity to men, society has caused that to be a weakness. I did a video on let's empower our men rather than enable and shun them. Why should men be different than women as far as emotions? Maybe if they tapped into their emotions, their sincerity, their true feelings, there wouldn't be so much toxicity, chaos, war, anger, frustration. Once we tap into our mindset, mental health has such a negative, convoluted stereotype to it. Look at the word. Mental means mind. Health means just what it is, health. The late, great Mr. Bob Proctor says, dis-ease cannot live in a healthy, happy mind. What if we tap into that? Why can't men get the awareness and acknowledgement that they can be just as easy and just as portrayed and experience victimization, abuse? Because society has put them as the abusers, them as the perpetrators, the predators. I've been in institutions, of women's institutions, and I've seen women who've abused them. It's not. Abuse of any kind has no gender, race, creed, belief, or religion. It's just an act, a behavior that was either learned, programmed, or experienced. And men should be respected, listened, and understood. Then there wouldn't be so much suppression of anger and feelings that an innocent bystander is the outlash of their emotions.
Yeah. We need to silence those voices that hold the negative in our lives. And sometimes that means walking away, from situations and things like that. One thing I've learned is that men, it's the strongest thing to be able to be honest. It's the strongest thing to be able to cry. It's the strongest thing to be able to be an emotional being, because that's what we are. We're made for connection. Man, woman, we're made for connection. We're made to connect to friends, to family, to God. It's all about connection. And I say this pretty much every one of these things I do. Addiction, trauma, disease, dis-ease is all about disconnection. It disconnects us from our lives, from our families, from our friends, from love. And it robs us of identity. It robs us of love. And we need that back. And what people don't realize about people that have been through these things, the survivors of the abuse, the survivors of addiction, the ones that have gotten recovery, the ones that have stepped and are facing their giants, is that we've had disconnection so much that we've been disconnected from ourselves. And that leads to
destruction,
homicide or suicide. Taken outward leads to homicide. Taken inward leads to suicide. And we need to talk more about it. We need to educate more about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think we'll leave it there, but I'd love to get you on for a part 2, and
we can talk about mental health. Absolutely.
Yeah, share some more of your wisdom. I've got a lot from it tonight, and I'm pretty sure
I learned a lot
everybody
from you.
else has. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for being so open and honest. We need more of it. We'll have a quick debrief in a second. I'm just going to say thank you to everybody and disconnect from the thing. But guys, thank you ever so much for bearing with me. Thank you ever so much, as always, for being the best fans and followers. I really do love you, and I really am humbled and blessed to have what I believe to be the best fans and followers that anyone could ever ask for. I just love it when you guys interact, and you've interacted tonight, and I'll go through that and have a look in a little while. I'm unapologetic. It's been quite a heavy one for some people, I would imagine. But it's been a real eye-opener for me, and I hope it's been a real eye-opener for you. I will see you on Monday. I have a special guest author coming on Monday. And at that, I say thank you guys ever so much, and I'll see you again soon. Take care, guys.